Mohammed is the only guy who calls me Marcel. The other one is my mother. So good morning, everybody, and how are you guys feeling? Is everyone doing great? Good, okay. I think, there's a lot been happening over the last few months, right? So in the world of telcos and specifically in the world of AI. And this morning I wanted to share with you specifically what we're seeing from an Accenture perspective globally and how AI is impacting the CSPs worldwide and how they need to navigate this. So, okay, let's wait for your clicker. There we go. All right, so I think, look, AI is not new, right? I think it's been developing over the last few years, but what I wanted to do firstly is just set the scene for what we're seeing. And then we're going to get into, some trends that we're seeing, I think from a CSP perspective, where the opportunities are and, how the industry is being impacted. So if you think about, from the 1950s, and, in the early days, and there's lots of research on neural networks, etc., and we got to automation and the deep blues of the world, and, the famous chess games that happened in the late or mid-90s, for the first time where you found Garry Kasparov, actually being defeated by supercomputers. Those are big things in the world. And, no one thought those days would arise, but it happened. And the rate of change is actually quite interesting over the last, I would say, 5 to 10 years. So we had a lot of, into the 1950s, early 2000s, lots of development. But look at the compute capacity at the bottom here, right? So, you're looking at probably around the 80s or so, less than 200,000 terabytes of data a day. And remember those old PCs in the 90s with the floppy drives there. Then you started seeing, we got to the early 2000s, and again, look at compute capacity is just under 1,000 trillion operations per second. So it's gone up by 1,000 times, right? This is about early 2000s. And the data availability started going up by 50 million. Look at where it is today. You're talking about compute capacities in excess of 500,000. That's 500,000 more than what we saw 15, 20 years ago. So the rate of change is happening extremely fast. So what's happening today, if you look at transformer architectures, Google developed that around 2017 or so, and we started looking at natural language processing architectures that those things impact. And this is where AI started to, about 6 to 8 months ago, you saw this explosion worldwide with ChatGPT, and my kids cheat sometimes, and I think, why are you doing your essays with ChatGPT and stuff? But it's starting to happen now. It's impacting everybody. And that's kind of when the explosion has started, and I think it's starting to hit mainstream now. So, I think what we need to look at now is firstly, there's AI and there's generative AI, right? So generative AI is just it's a type of artificial intelligence now that's creating content. So this is what's happening when we're playing around with ChatGPT, etc. But there's a number of inputs that, from Wikipedia, from videos and YouTube and podcasts and things like that. And then you have these foundational models that these, a lot of these AI models work on, and they get generating lots of output, right? And you have output that's actually quite interesting, and it's reaching people like me and you, and if you're in the telco industry, every single person on a mobile device has some access in any way to artificial intelligence. Now, the big thing that's starting as well, and I met a lot of hardware suppliers in Mobile World Congress a few months ago in Barcelona. We're starting to talk about hardware devices with AI capabilities that's starting to come up. And we'll chat a little bit about that, but that's kind of what you're starting to see now is the generative part of AI. Okay, so every industry is experimenting. The telco industry, if you look at Africa, if you look at South Africa, I was in Kenya a few weeks ago, this was the hot topic. Uganda just before that, Tanzania just before that. This is what everyone is talking about right now. So we're looking at 50% of executives are starting to do some significant thinking or investments in generative AI. And it just started in 2023. But the kind of value is still, it hasn't hit mainstream yet. You're still seeing it under 10%. Now, look at that. Look at the graph on the extreme right-hand side. So what this is showing is the productivity gains in specific industries that we started to research. And you can see banking and insurance is still fairly high, 22 to 30% from a productivity perspective that, for example, the banking world would see. In the telco world, in the CSP world, which I live in, and a lot of you, and I see a lot of colleagues from all the operators here today, so welcome, you're starting to see something around 14 to 20%, which is still significant. We're starting to see that, and a lot of research that we're seeing is like 98% of executives are seeing these AI foundation models that will impact their strategies in the next 3 to 5 years. So I guess the message to you is, I know you guys are probably having discussions around it. Keep on having those discussions. The ways of work, 51%, right? And this is the media and entertainment industry. We're starting to see major impacts of how AI is going to impact the media and entertainment industry. And I talk about the media and entertainment industry. So I look after the telcos in Africa for Accenture. And MultiChoice is part of my stable as well. And we're starting to see them using this quite impactfully as well. And I know there was a press release done where they're actually using Teams to actually use AI to generate meeting minutes and things like that, which is actually phenomenal. And we're seeing huge productivity gains that they're actually seeing. So 14 to 20%, still, quite a significant thing in the telco industry. And if you think about, we're going to have some panel discussions later. You look at CapEx intensity, et cetera. That's the big game now that telcos are facing. It's expensive to run networks. If the cost of the product and going out into the market has been driven lower and lower by, inflation or regulatory means, it becomes difficult for telcos to actually manage that intensity. So it's happened. We're starting to see the impact of, this. Okay. So let's think of, what we're seeing now is lots of interesting trends starting to come up, right? So we're starting to see 5 trends that, these are big trends that we're seeing worldwide. They're cutting across industry. The first one is life reimagined. Everything has changed. A lot of you guys are in the office or homes. You're on Teams calls throughout the day, and then you're running into a school or wherever it is, and you're back at the office. But things are changing, and we will start to see AI try to hopefully plan and help you, hopefully soon. A new contract for society. Connectivity is a human right, right? If you look at and this is going back to the investments in network modernization. This is I think, if you think about the likes of 5G, et cetera, worldwide, the business cases are very low. There's not a lot of money that's actually been made by telcos there, but the industry is moving in that direction. And we'll talk about, some case studies I'm seeing around network planning that some telcos are doing, and they're using AI specifically, which should help them. But, that's kind of what we see happening now. There's lots of competition, pricing is going down. How do you balance this? And we believe AI has a place to play. The search for value, number of platform business models. We're starting to see different B2B models emerging, different B2C models emerging. If you look at the retail sector and all the OTTs that are starting to impact the retail sector, so look at the like of Temu's and the Sheins of the world, for the guys who shop on those things, it's a surge like you've never seen, right? And interestingly, the telco industry needs to take note of that because they're riding on the top of some of the infrastructure that the telco industry is actually providing. Partnering in your growth models. So partnerships are absolutely key here. You know, if you look at the organizations leading the AI charge, it's these big hyperscalers, the Microsofts, the Googles, the guys investing in OpenAI. So what you're starting to see is, you know, cloud native type of thinking. Telcos are moving rapidly to the cloud. They're moving applications to the cloud. It doesn't come with challenges. It does. But these are trends that we're starting to see, and you're starting to see AI playing a difference there. Now, obviously, the whole telco to techco move, you know, the software and cloud models that are coming up now. And, you know, so these high-level industry shifts, we see them cutting across from an Accenture perspective in banking, in comms and media, you know, and the list goes on and on, in insurance, etc. So quite an important thing, you know, for us to get right. Okay, so if we think about, you know, what can telcos actually get out of this, right? And if you look at the extreme right-hand side, you know, imagine detailed invoices that you use natural language to process, and we can actually make sense of all of these things, right? See these bills every month, and I'm like, oh my God, what is this? But it'll become easier, and these are the things that the industry will try and get right. Loyalty and rewards. Geez, I wish I get a reward that I actually could use. There's so many out there these days, but honestly, how many of us actually use these things? And I think as AI develops, this is going to help us a lot more. I'm going to pause there and just tell you guys a story. So in Mobile World Congress, I listened to the CEO of Deutsche Telekom, so he must take credit for this. But anyway, he spoke about something quite fascinating to me, where he spoke about an appless future happening in the next few years, which is kind of relevant to this. But basically he said was, he doesn't see us using apps in the next 4 or 5 years, quite a short period of time. The way he spoke about it was, let's just say your kid or your daughter, in my case, she has a birthday coming up. And, you know, through my interactions with her, etc., there's a profile of that, and we'll know what gift she likes. And, you know, some type of AI processing would actually get this gift delivered to her, the exact one she wants, without me doing much, without me actually going onto the phone, without me actually going into the app. Just imagine that happening. We actually didn't touch it, but you know you need to buy your daughter a gift, and these things are going to remind you of these things. So that's kind of, you know, the art of the possible. Imagine a world where, you know, for the technical folks here, all the documentation you're producing, all of those good things, there's a massive reduction in that. You know, these are the real live use cases that we're actually seeing. And I think the last one, customer experience, this is quite a big one in the, you know, what we're seeing AI really benefiting globally in a number of these telcos now, that we're starting to see customers that, you know, they'll get better output based on some algorithms in the back. Okay, now, obviously, I guess, you know, there's challenges, there's lots of potentials, but there's hurdles as well, right? So you need to get data right. So I think, and we're seeing this specifically in the telco industry. We've done some research around this. Obviously, this cuts across. Data quality is really important. You need to mine the data. You need to look after your data properly. Regulatory compliance is a big one, right? So as we know, every telco in the planet is heavily regulated. So you need to think carefully about how you operate in these regulatory frameworks. Legacy systems, there's still a lot of technical debt out there. As you move to new data models, moving to new platforms, etc., you really need to take some time to understand, you know, moving to these, from these legacy models. Your privacy wall, security is massive, right? So there's a lot of deep fake. I actually saw a mail last night from Accenture, our group CEO. There was a deep fake incident that happened where I think someone in our finance department got a video call from her that wasn't her asking to deposit some money in a bank account. I was like, whoa. But it was her. It looked like her. It was a video call, just that she was asking for money in a bank account. Yeah, I guess she makes millions of dollars. So I think that's where the person said, oh gosh, why do you need this? So Complexity, another one. Lots of specialized fields, workflows, etc. So you need to, integrate these models quite effectively. And speed. Telcos are changing just every single second, right? So you got to think about how you're going to actually get the speed combination right. So this is just a whole set of what we see. This is real case studies, actually some telcos from Africa as well, where we're actually working with our clients to actually engage in using AI effectively. I'll just call it one or two. The one at the reduced time to market was an interesting one. I saw this in Spain, where this specific operator was actually doing a lot of network design sites. And they were using AI to help them build the right sites in the right places. I know in South Africa, some of the telcos are looking at using AI to optimize and balance out the network, which I haven't done before, right? It's normally humans in the background. Obviously, you'll start seeing lots of organizations playing with chatbots and generating information from chatbots. We've actually started doing a lot of that in the South African market. That's kind of what I'm seeing a lot of. And another one, if you look at, I always like the Korean organizations, and SDK and those guys are doing a lot in terms of launching their super apps. And Kristen was talking about digital services, et cetera. Those guys are very, very digitally orientated. And they're using AI to actually look at the interaction between, the super app and the user and the retailers and all the organizations in the background. So we're starting to see, these type of use cases emerging. Which is actually, it's good that organizations are taking and not plunging in, but actually taking the time to realize some of this. So let's just talk a little bit about the opportunities, and there's challenges, right? If you look at 1.7%, that's a compound annual growth rates. It's fairly low. But this is globally what we're seeing, right? So this is what's happening. Negative 15.4% on average return on invested capital, so it's going downward. And net to EBITDA ratios is also increasing. So the telco industry is under a lot of pressure, right? Now, what can they actually do, right? Where should we be focused? So firstly, if you're a CMO here, if you're in the consumer part of the organization, product development, this is important. You're mining data. You're getting context from your users. You should know what products will sell in the market based on the data you have. And these models, these algorithms that's being available now from an AI perspective, you should use. Your customer journeys, et cetera. You shouldn't have customer journeys buying journeys that are senseless. You should use AI to look at predicting, helping you understand, but where are my customers actually going to click on my app, on the screen, wherever the case is. And quality of service as well. That's a big one, right? Things are down, people move on. They're going to start using other apps. And that's the killer, right? So, if you have a problem with your back end, which your AI should tell you if you have a problem, and if I have a Takealot app and a Shein app and a Temu app and one's done, I'm buying the other one. You've lost me. Cost optimization is another big one. How do you actually look at smart CapEx and looking at, from a cost perspective, your field agents, and we're seeing a lot of that in the contact center industry as well, and your workforce, and how do you make them a lot more productive? So when you're thinking about your business cases, it's definitely about revenue uplift and cost optimization. I think that's absolutely key that everyone needs to think about, and you need to get right going forward. So just a few more slides and we wrap up. But I think the interesting thing here is this $80 to $100 billion value is across, in this industry specifically, but it's over the next few years. It's not 10, 20 years out. $80 to $100 billion is obviously a global figure, but it shows you, where to actually play, right? And if you look at some of these metrics, customer operations is a big one, right? So contact centers, how you service your customers. We're doing a lot of contact center implementations now, and we're starting to look at IVR optimization, where these AI models can actually check, call times and call time durations, and actually assist agents a lot better. The big one, though, is sales and marketing. There's a lot of value in that area, almost $35 billion. It's a big one. So from a sales and marketing perspective, you've got to spend time on understanding how AI can actually help you create these lovely journeys. And if you're in the digital services world, is it the right product, etc. We spoke about product development and getting these things out, but getting it faster out to market, which is another one. $7 to $20 billion, still significant. And then I guess a big one, what you are seeing, and I guess big adopters of this are the IT and network operation centers, or the organizations. So you're starting to see CTOs and CIOs of operators all over doing this. So I guess, in conclusion, what we're starting to see is that generative AI is ushered in a new way of thinking, new way of intelligence, right? It's evolving how we see value. But it's also critical if you want to be having a competitive advantage. You have to be doing it. You have to be investing time to, embrace AI. There's many opportunities in the value chain, right? But you've got to innovate. You've got to work with stakeholders. You've got to look at uplifting revenue, like we said. You've got to look at optimizing costs. And I guess on the third point, it's, from a CSP perspective, it's exploring opportunities and do it, and understand preventative measures and the risks and the limitations. So you've got to be responsible how you actually implement AI in your organization. So finally, I think, look, what we're seeing is these guiding principles, right? So guiding principles is, you got to dive in. You have to. It's a competitive advantage. Your competitors are doing it. Take a people-first approach. Get the right people around you. Start identifying the right business cases. Get your data ready. This is critical. You have lots of data. Clean it up. Make sure you have the right data models. Invest in the right technology foundations. And yes, you don't need to be just a technical person to understand this. It's freely available. Understand what models are out there. Get your ecosystem right. Look at the right partners, who you're going to work with. And then, get your responsible hat on. And that's it.
Thank you, Nitesh. I think it's no longer a debate if we should or not, if AI is taking our jobs or not, yeah?